It's great. All right, let me see if I make sure I can share my screen here.
Yeah.
And you can see that, hopefully.
Yes, we can. I think it's still, I
Okay.
think
I have to start it, but just want to make sure. There
perfect.
we go. All right. So it's me and also my cat is probably going to be making an appearance. She seems to love to join the webinar. So how you know that I am real and not AI, right? My cat. All right. So this is a presentation that I like to give, a public presentation here. This is a lot of things that I recommend as an energy auditor. When I'm trying to help people make their houses more energy efficient and more comfortable, certainly there are larger things that you need the contractors for, typically to do the larger insulation and heat pumps and things like that. But there's really a lot of low-hanging fruit for DIY kind of work that people can do themselves. Some people really love to just roll up their sleeves and do some projects in the house themselves. Some people, doing it just to try and save some money, so you don't have to hire people to do it. Sometimes people have no other choice, like out on the islands, which can be pretty remote, and you can't even get somebody out there. So these are all things that I recommend. A lot of these things I've done in my own house. So I'm going to be showing you a number of pictures here. Let me advance this here. All right. So just a couple of notes here. I have a number of infrared pictures in the presentation here. I'm not saying you need to use an infrared camera. This is just a great way to be able to kind of visualize and actually see where air leaks are coming in. And I'm using the blower door in the picture here. That's a temporary door frame with a fan in it, and that depressurizes the house. So it causes air leakage to happen, and then you can kind of go around the house and feel where that's pulling in. So that's a tool that I love to use as an auditor. You can also rent this equipment as well. So if you want to do DIY work and use an infrared camera, you can actually rent that equipment as well. One other note that I want to make here, some of these things that I'm recommending are really kind of treating more the effect than the actual cause itself. One example would be like we're going to talk a little bit about putting the foam gaskets behind exterior wall outlets and light switch covers and things like that. Um, so really the larger question is, why is there air leakage getting into your wall in the first place? And the foam gasket is kind of a band-aid to kind of help with that. But that bigger question, how is the air getting in your wall in the first place? That might be a bigger question that might be too difficult for people who are doing DIY. Maybe that's more of an insulation question. All right. And let's see. Some of the tools in our toolbox here to do some air sealing and some of this work that we're talking about is using caulking. So like clear silicone caulking, when you apply it, it's typically white and then it dries and it's clear. So there's caulking. Alex Plus is one. Big Stretch is another. Alex Plus specifically being the clear silicone caulking version of that. And then we also have can foam as well that we use to do a lot of air sealing work, trying to stop the air leaks there. So we have the blue cans and the red cans here. The red, like the great stuff, the red can, that's kind of just like a normal foam that you use to fill gaps around the house. And then the blue can here, this is low expanding foam really specifically for windows and doors. Because if you use the red can stuff, then it kind of expands too much, and then you can actually warp the window or actually even crack and break the glass as well. If you're going to be using a lot of can foam, if you really get into this, then you can buy what you see here in the middle picture, the guy with the can foam gun there. The foam guns are like $40 or $50 at Lowe's or Home Depot, and you can screw the cans into it. So that allows you to just reuse it over and over, and it also gives you much more precision control. So those are some of the tools that we're going to be looking at here. All right. A number of these recommendations are going to be about Windows. So before we jump into the solutions, just want to make a couple points about Windows. So if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you see the new Windows here, you'll see the Windows sticker and it's got all these different numbers on it. The one that I want to pay attention to here is the U factor. It's the 0.35 U factor. So windows are rated in U factor. It's not like insulation that's rated in R value. You know, the higher the R value, the better. If you have like 6-inch fiberglass bats as an R19, you know, and the more the better, right? We love R value. U factor is the inverse of R value. It's the opposite. So like sometimes I kind of put on my tinfoil hat and think, uh, since Windows have such a low R value, if you actually knew what the R value was by looking at a sticker, you'd say, oh no, I don't want that. That's terrible. Right? So if we actually do the math here, 1 divided by 0.35, this window has an R value of R2.8. And this is actually a pretty efficient window that this is an example of here. So, you know, you may have R19 in the walls, but your windows are only R2.8. All right, it's not really very much. So, but the good news is there are a lot of things that we can do to improve our existing windows. So we'll give some examples of that. The window shrink wrap, this is pretty popular. I see, you know, this is a pretty low cost, easy homeowner DIY install. So it's the plastic sheeting that you put an adhesive around and tape it to the window, and then we use our hair dryer and kind of pulls the plastic pretty taut. And so it's the shrink wrap plastic. So the cons of these though, the downsides of these, they tear really easily. Cats really love these because they just, you know, slice it up and then it's no good. So it's not very durable. The adhesive tends to rip off the paint at the end of the season, just like any kind of tape you leave on. You know, for a season, you pull it off and it's going to pull all the paint off too. So it can damage the window, or at least the paint. And also, it looks like you have saran wrap on your windows, which, you know, I don't judge. Like, hey, it works really well, but some people don't really like the aesthetic of that. So anyway, that's one. We also talk about making sure that windows are locked and latched at the beginning of every heating season. You know, this seems pretty obvious, but locking and latching the windows, especially for a double hung window or a casement crank out window, the lock is actually what pulls the sashes together and helps to seal all of the gaps between the sashes. So, you know, it seems obvious, but when I do a blower door test and I walk around the house, usually most of the windows are actually unlocked. They're closed, but they're unlocked, so there's air leakage that comes through. So definitely at the beginning of each heating season, I recommend that. There are some different types of window inserts, the interior window inserts. I'm not really a big fan of the exterior storm panels because they rattle and they're not really very airtight, but the interior window inserts work really, really well. So there's a couple of different options that I mentioned here. I see Cliff from Window Dressers is here with us today. Hi, Cliff. Window Dressers is an awesome community volunteer program. They go to different towns throughout the state and they basically will come and measure your windows and then they build, you know, there's a volunteer community build where they use basically the wood frame. They put that shrink wrap plastic on both sides, and then they put a weather stripping gasket around the edge of the frame. So these are meant to be inserted during the winter, and then you pull it back out so that you can use the window for the rest of the other seasons. So that's a great option, very low cost. I mean, certainly compared to having to actually replace the window, these interior window inserts much cheaper. So big shout out to Window Dressers. You can go to their website and see when their community build is going to be near you. There's also a couple of YouTube videos that I like. This one that I listed here, this is for using plexiglass panels. So you can buy plexiglass from Lowe's or Home Depot. If you give them the dimensions of it, they'll cut it for you. And then you can basically use this kind of system. The screenshot on the right here is a picture of that. So that's an insert that goes in with a foam gasket around it. And then again, you just take that out at the end of the heating season, and then you can still use your window. But that also helps it make it pretty airtight. There are some manufactured options here, like Indo or Interglass, where if you send them the dimensions, it's companies in New England, you send them the dimensions, they'll make the plexiglass panel for you and mail it to you. So that's an option as well. Sometimes they can be almost as expensive as a new window, though. So DIY is definitely going to save you a lot of money here. All right. Another thing that I will typically recommend, especially with skylights, is removable foam board panels. So using 2-inch rigid foam board cut to fit as an insert on the inside of the window. I definitely recommend something like this pink board or blue board, something like that, 2-inch. So basically, skylights typically allow a lot of solar heat gain during the wintertime during the day. That sun comes in. We love that, right? That's our free heat from the sun that we get, helps to heat our house during the day. But at night, all that heat just kind of goes back out again. So you can put these rigid foam board panels, up inside, covering the window, and that's going to stop a lot of that heat loss going back out. So sometimes homeowners say, "Hey, that's way too much work. I don't want to have to keep taking things in and out." Um, I hear you. This is super effective, works really well. So especially for people who have like their bed right under the skylight and all night you just feel the radiant cold off of that. This is a good option. All right. So we talk about air leakage through the window itself, but the other side of the coin is there's often a lot of air leakage that comes around the window. So where we have our window trim around the windows on the inside, if you take that off, there's that rough opening around the window frame. It's usually about like a half-inch to an inch gap. And hopefully, new windows being installed today, hopefully they air seal that. But like when I took them off in my house, there was nothing there, just completely empty. And of course, the air just goes right through that. Or maybe usually there's like pink fiberglass bat insulation that people just kind of stuffed in around the window, but air just goes right through that. It doesn't stop it at all. So here are some infrared pictures where we can see that happening. These purple streaks here with the blower door running, the air is just coming right around the window. You can see it. And then the arrow here, it shows you kind of where that gap is. So here you can use some clear silicone caulking to just kind of seal that up. I mean, ultimately, if you could take the window trim off and actually air seal the actual rough opening, that would be even better. But I mentioned that to a lot of homeowners, and they say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not taking all the trim off all my windows." So this is another way that you can do it. Helps to reduce the air leakage here. Uh, so there's using clear silicone caulking around the trim here. And then, yes, here's a picture of my house in the middle here. I took the window trim off, and there's just like 3-inch gap with nothing in it. They insulated everything else, but they said, that's too small. Forget about it. So I stood in front of my kitchen window, always wondering, why is it so cold in the winter? I feel the cold coming off. So you can use different materials. I mean, this is a really big gap, but this picture on the left is a little bit more indicative of what the rough opening looks like when you take the window trim off. So you have that like 1-inch gap around, and the air just kind of goes right through that. So you can use low expanding can foam in that blue can there. You can also use what's called foam backer rod, which is essentially like a little mini pool noodle, right? Just a foam cylinder, and you can just kind of stuff it in there. It comes in different widths. You can stuff it in there, and that will air seal it as well. So you got some options there. Sometimes people will say, what if I just drill some holes through my wood trim and I spray some foam behind it, like a can foam? So this is what we call spray and pray right here, right? You have no idea what's going on behind there, and then it just like bulges out and it looks horrible like that. So don't do that. That's not a good DIY idea. All right. So talk about doors as well. So installing weather stripping around the door that attaches on the frame itself. There is foam weather stripping tape that you can use. That's not really a long-term solution. It kind of wears off and falls out. but you can also buy weather stripping door kits from Lowe's or Home Depot that have the rubberized gaskets, and you just secure that to the door frame, and the door is going to close up tight against that and stop the air from coming around the door. We also have the door sweeps on the bottom of the door here that you see on the left. So basically just a gasket that, when you shut the door, that gasket is up behind the door, stopping the air from coming through underneath. There are some different options here. This is what's called a straight sweep on the picture on the left. There's also an auto sweep version of that that is spring loaded. So when you open the door, the sweep pops up, and then as you close the door, the spring pushes it back down again, so it doesn't drag on the floor. So you have some options there. And then also air sealing around the interior trim around the door as well, just like the windows, that's important. This picture on the right side here, this was a door actually to the garage, to the attached garage. And you can see that purple, that purple cold air streaks up above that, especially going out to the garage, right? Because you don't want to have any air leakage from the garage into the living space. That car exhaust is going to come right in the house. So we definitely want to make sure that that's sealed up pretty tight. All right, so also for DIY, down in the basement to do some air sealing, this is the band joist here, rim and band joist, where the house sits on the foundation wall. If your basement is unfinished, you can go down and see all these rim joist squares that run along the top of the foundation wall here. So here are a couple of pictures of that. So sometimes I come to houses where it's completely uninsulated and not air sealed. Air tends to leak through these spaces pretty frequently. So I always recommend, oh, I'm going to use my fancy pen here. All right, I always recommend using some canned foam right here along the perimeter of each of the rim joist bays here. So you air seal that. That's going to stop the air from coming through. This picture in the middle, this is also what I commonly see, like 6-inch or 4-inch fiberglass bat insulation cut into rectangles and stuffed into the rim joist here. But you can see I pulled it back and there's no canned foam here. So you have to make sure that that's air sealed there because the air is just going to come in, move right through this fiberglass, and it's not really going to be very effective. So you can usually contractors will use like 3 inches of closed cell spray foam. You can cut pieces of 2-inch rigid foam board and then use your can foam and air seal those in place. That's pretty DIY friendly. You can use rock wool if it's an older house. Like the 1850s farmhouses, we certainly have plenty of those. So we can use rock wool for that and then use the can foam for air sealing. Also, in the rim and band joist here, this is also an entry point for rodents into the house. Mice can fit through the size of about a nickel's thickness. And so any little spot here in the rim joist, they can just kind of squeeze their way through. All right, so also while we're in the basement, also looking at basement wall insulation. So especially if you have poured concrete or concrete block wall, then you can put insulation over that. You don't want to put things like fiberglass or cellulose that are going to, cause mold and mildew if you have moisture issues there. So typically you want to use moisture resistant products like a contractor is going to use 2-inch closed cell spray foam. You could also put 2-inch rigid foam board and either glue it to the wall with adhesive glue, or you can use concrete screws and fasten it to the wall. One thing I always recommend, though, is looking for signs of moisture. So if you have water coming in down the walls, obviously you got to take care of that first. This picture on the right, this is what's called efflorescence. So it kind of looks a little bit like mold maybe, but it's kind of white, fluffy. This is from moisture that's moving through the wall, and as it gets into the basement, the water evaporates, but it leaves the minerals behind. So this is kind of a visual indication that you kind of have some moisture coming through. So you probably want to go around the outside of the house and make sure there's no place that water can kind of pool against the foundation and kind of drive its way through there. Concrete, the reason we talk about the basement wall insulation, concrete has an R value of about 0.1 per inch. So heat just goes right through it. I mean, especially your foundation wall that's above grade, any heat just goes right out of there. So this is a good DIY thing you can do. If you have like rubble stone foundation, if the walls are really uneven, if you have brick walls, then that gets a little bit trickier. But if it's concrete, then it's a lot easier. All right. Let's see. Careful of fiberglass bat framed walls in basements. If people kind of DIY themselves and finish their basement, if they put up 2x4s and then put fiberglass behind it, that if moisture comes through, then it can cause mold and mildew. So always looking for signs of moisture there. All right. Also, basement windows. This picture on the left here, anytime you see a lot of cobwebs around the window like that, that is a sure sign that there is a lot of air leakage through the window. Spiders are really smart, right? They set up shop, they put their webs up, they just wait for food to come to them, right? Just like my kids when they were teenagers, just wait for the food to come to them. So it's not a sign that somebody's a bad housekeeper. It's just there's a lot of air leakage there. So there are some options, things you can do. I mean, ideally, this picture on the left, this is actually from an 1850s farmhouse. Ideally, it would be great to replace this with a new window, but they're expensive. One thing that is pretty easy DIY friendly, you can cut 2-inch rigid foam board and put it in front of the window in the basement, and then you can use the can foam and air seal around that. That really will minimize any air leakage or heat loss through those windows. And I'll always tell people like do all of the other work, like the insulation, the air sealing, and then at the very end, okay, do the windows, but save that for later. The rigid foam board works really well. You can always just cut it out and remove it later, easily enough. It's not hard. If people do that in their unfinished basement, then I usually recommend that they also upgrade their lighting in their basement so that they have really bright LED lights because they're losing that light, the natural light coming through the window. This picture on the right, this is from a 1980s colonial where the homeowner actually paid a lot of money to have a company come in and do all this spray foam work in the basement, trying to stop the heat loss and air leakage through the basement walls here and up in the rim joist. But the windows are still original. These single pane sliding aluminum windows, the heat's just going right out of there. Especially in this case, this window is actually broken. When I ran the blower door and I'm walking through the basement, you see I don't have much hair. So as I'm walking through the basement, I feel the cold air over my head saying, what is that? So this window is broken from when he was mowing the lawn. It must have thrown a rock into the window. So this is a great example of in an unfinished basement, cut that piece of rigid foam board, put it in place, air seal it in place, and you're not going to really have very much heat loss through that window anymore. So a lot cheaper. All right, so these are some dirt floor crawl spaces, basements. This picture on the left here, I am 98% certain that is just a decoration. I'm not 100%. I didn't look too closely. I wasn't going in there. But I took a picture in here. So when you have a dirt floor exposed in the crawl space or in the basement, then you definitely want to cover that with a vapor barrier. And you can't just kind of throw some plastic sheeting down and call it good. You have to make sure that it's sealed and continuous. This picture in the middle, there's a dirt floor in this crawl space, and they put the plastic down, but you can see there's kind of a 3-inch gap here all the way around the perimeter of it. And of course, that moisture just goes right around the plastic, doesn't stop it at all. So this is not doing anything at all right here. Also, all these cobwebs, love that, right? So it's just air leakage through the window. And then the picture on the right here, so much moisture comes up through the dirt. Sometimes homeowners will tell me it's a dry dirt. right? It's not like muddy or anything. Like, no, there's still a lot of moisture that comes up through. And of course, not just the moisture, but radon. You have really poor indoor air quality. And of course, what happens in the basement happens in the living space. It will come up into the living space. It doesn't kind of just disappear. So we got to use a really good thick plastic sheeting. Contractors normally do this, but you can absolutely do this. Homeowners can do this and save themselves some money. It's not the most fun job, but you can do it. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that show you how to do this if you want to tackle this yourself. All right. Attic accesses also love to pick on those. So this is from a 1990s colonial. The house is very nice, had a lot of trim everywhere. Very high quality house. But the attic hatch, it looks really nice. But this is not solid wood. This is just tongue groove boards that are just kind of fastened together here. And we see in the picture on the middle, that's what it looks like from the top of the attic, right? So mice have been hanging out on it, doing what they do. There's like this little piece of fiberglass that's kind of hanging on there, like that's not actually doing anything at all. Uh, and then we see with the infrared camera here, with the blower door running, the air is just going right through it, right? The cold air just comes right through. So um, typically, attic accesses, whether it's a hatch like this or a pull down staircase, there's a lot of heat loss and air leakage here. The whole attic might be pretty well insulated, but the attic hatch is usually not. So I recommend putting in a 3/4 inch piece of plywood for a really solid panel there. Add 2 layers, at least 2 layers of 2-inch polyiso rigid foam board onto the back. So that's going to give it, a good R28 at least of insulation. And then you can install foam weather stripping tape all around the hatch opening. And then I also recommend that people install latches so that it's going to pull that panel, down tight into the weather stripping. So this is definitely something that a homeowner can do themselves. You don't have to pay a contractor for it. All right, then we have the pull down staircases here. This is always something I love to pick on whenever I do energy audits and someone has a pull down. Then I can say to somebody, "Hey, there's a lot of air leakage through there," and most people say, "Okay." But then when I run the blower door and I have them stand right underneath it, and it's like a hurricane in their face, then they're like, "Oh my God, there's a lot of air leakage." So there are different things that you can do here. What I usually recommend is rigid foam board boxes you can make yourself. You can seal it up with some metal tape, and that would sit over the opening of the pull down. So when you go up into the attic, you just kind of pick it up and move it over, and that's going to help to reduce that heat loss and air leakage through there. There are kits that you can buy. You can make your own. Again, bunch of videos on YouTube. You can see how to make your own. There are also some zippered quilted alternatives that sit over the opening. Like if the rafters come down pretty close to the pull down and you don't really have space to put a big box there, there's some alternatives to that. One thing I don't recommend is what they sell at the big box stores, which is a fiberglass bat. Basically, it's like a tent, that sits over the opening, and it's got a foil cover on it. So when you open the pull down, again, the idea is that you pick it up and move it over. But really, what actually happens is you get a huge face full of fiberglass insulation, which is nasty. All of the people who come to work at your house are not going to appreciate that, including me. I don't like that. So rigid foam board covers, much, much better and a lot more effective, actually. All right. The exterior dryer vents. So when I am doing exterior inspections in my audits, I sort of feel like I'm the dryer vent police in Maine because this is what they usually look like. These pictures here, the left and the middle, you have all of the lint that comes out, clogs it up, and these flaps stay open. So this is just a direct pathway for air leakage right into the house. So especially if homeowners say, "Hey, always feels really cold in my laundry room. I don't know why," because the cold air is coming in right through here. So I always recommend take these off. Critters can come right in through here as well. So take these off. You can spend a little bit of extra money, buy these magnetic style vents so that it blows open when it's used and then it seals back closed again when it's done. And then, of course, making sure every 3 months you go outside and just clean out the lint buildup. Um, Everybody watching here, if you guys go outside and check your dryer vent, it might look like this. So I will deputize you all as the dryer vent police so that I'm not the only one. All right. All right, so air sealing around the house. Again, I'm just using an infrared camera that kind of you can visualize it. You can see it here. You don't need that, but basically we're looking for different surfaces where different materials are meeting. So the picture on the left, if you have exposed wood beams in your house, it looks really nice, but where you have drywall that meets the wood beam, there's usually a bit of a gap there. It's not sealed. So you can use clear silicone caulking. uh, Picture in the middle here, this is where the fireplace, brick fireplace hearth meets the drywall. I usually find a little bit of a gap there. You can use some heat-rated caulking to do that. And then this picture on the right, this is different pieces of wood trim that come together at the floor. So, with the blower door running and the infrared, I can see that as well. So all great places to use some clear silicone caulking. You have to be really judicious with silicone caulking. It does dry clear, but then it's a little bit shiny, so you can see it. So you only just want to use a little bit unless you look up and you see all that. So don't put like globs of it on there. You'll definitely see it. All right, now we talk about the foam gaskets. Like I said, bigger question is why is there air getting into your wall in the first place? The answer is usually because there's fiberglass batt insulation in the wall, which is the most common type of insulation. And if there's any way that air can get into that wall cavity from the outside, it's just going to move right through the fiberglass. So, that's a much bigger thing to have to fix. But in the meantime, a great DIY solution is we can put these foam gaskets in. These usually cost like $1 a piece. It's not that much. It's not like this is going to drop your heating bill in half. Certainly not. But it's easy to put in. Um, you have to be careful, but you just pull the cover off, put the foam gasket on, and then put it back. And then on any unused outlets like this picture here, you can just use the little plastic plugs like the kid safe plugs and put those in. Again, stop the air from being able to come through. So we get some really dramatic pictures with the blower door and infrared here, like this picture on the right here. You can order these foam gaskets online. I mean, like Lowe's or Home Depot or your hardware store is going to have just the basic, two outlet pads. But, if you have like multiple outlets together, then it gets a little trickier. So works really well. All right, foam pipe wrap in basements. So this is for if you have forced hot water boiler heat, and then also the domestic hot water lines as well. Honestly, as an auditor, I'm shocked and amazed every time I come into a basement and people actually have the foam pipe wrap because it's so rare. I don't see it that much. So especially for forced hot water systems, if you have baseboard heat, all of those lines running through the basement are dumping a lot of heat into the basement before it actually ever gets to the living space, which is what you're paying for, right? So this insulated foam wrap works really well. It's really cheap. You can buy like cases of it, and it's an easy DIY project. You can go down in the basement and do all this work yourself. Uh, don't pay anybody to do this. It's too easy, right? So you're helping to reduce the heat loss, but the other side of it is this picture on the right here. A lot of times your baseboard lines are running right over at the rim joist, which you see here are uninsulated, unsealed. It's right next to the window, that old window here. So when you have frozen pipes, it's usually because there's air leakage across that pipe. It's not usually the ambient temperature in the basement, it's the cold air that's blowing across the pipe and it freezes it. So if we can wrap all of our pipes, then we also not just have the slow down the heat loss, but then can help to prevent frozen pipes as well. So definitely the copper pipes. Sometimes people think that, oh, I have PEX tubing. I don't Don't have to insulate that. Yes, the PEX plastic is not an insulator. It does flex a little bit so that it reduces the risk of frozen pipes, but you definitely still have heat loss through it, so you want to insulate that. All right. Also recommending that you insulate for the domestic water lines. You want to insulate the hot lines and the cold lines as well. The cold lines, no, you don't have heat loss, but in an unfinished basement, that cold metal pipe in the basement during the summertime, where there's usually higher humidity, then it starts to sweat and then it drips on the floor. So foam pipe wrap solves that as well. All right. Recessed lights. Oh, I love to pick on recessed lights. So recessed lights, the old recessed light can fixtures, they're designed to allow for air leakage and heat loss. If you look at the sides of them, they're actually slots cut all around it to let the heat go through it. Because if you put old incandescent light bulbs in there, the heat really builds up and you could actually short out the fixture or start a fire. So they vent them on purpose. But all of our heat from our house also goes right up through the recessed light. So if you have, 4 or 6 or 8 recessed lights in your ceiling, basically every single one of those is just a hole cut in the ceiling. The heat just goes right through it. So a couple of options here. For DIY, I recommend that people replace their fixtures with these LED wafer thin lights that you see on the right. These have a foam gasket on it so that it really helps to air seal it, and then you can insulate over it as well. It's safe to do that. Um, if you have the recessed lights already, you have that hole cut in your ceiling, you have the wires there already. Some people don't know, but in the state of Maine, it is legal for homeowners to do their own um, wiring. You can replace your own light fixtures without being licensed. So if you feel comfortable with that, again, tons of videos on YouTube that show you how to do this. It's really pretty easy. If you're not comfortable with playing with the wires and all that, then there are a couple of options. There are recessed light hats that sit over the fixtures that you can put over these covers in the attic, and then you can air seal those in place. So that's one option. There's also, you can build box covers out of rigid foam board, do that and put it over in the attic. And there are also some retrofit kits that kind of screw in, new bulb screws in that's LED, and it has a foam gasket to air seal it as well. So got some options there, but anytime I do an audit with the blower door and infrared and they have recessed lights, then this is a great visual. You see in these pictures here, the cold air is just coming right through there. All right, for chimneys, depends on if it's a fireplace that you use all the time, occasionally or not at all. In the case here, the picture on the right, the damper is closed. With the blower door running, you still feel a lot of air leakage through. That doesn't make it airtight when you close the damper. So if it's a fireplace that somebody is using just occasionally, like maybe once a week or once or twice a month, this is a great product on the left here, the chimney balloon. This is basically like an inflatable bag. You put this up inside the damper, you inflate it, and it takes the shape of the flue. It makes it airtight, and then you can deflate that and pull it back out anytime you want to use it, and then you can put it back in afterwards. So this is a great kind of temporary thing to stop that air leakage. Another thing, if you never use the fireplace at all, then definitely use some rigid foam board. Put that up in place, air seal that in place, and stop all the air leakage and heat loss through there. All right. Next is programmable thermostats. So this one on the left is kind of dial analog mercury thermostat. These are fairly inaccurate. They're just not very accurate. If you replace them with a digital programmable thermostat like this Honeywell in the middle here, it's going to be much more accurate. You can program these to have a 6-degree setback for overnights so that you're not using as much heat overnight. I mean, you're in bed, you don't even feel it anyway. So if you put these in and you program a 6-degree setback, it can actually save you up to 10% on your heating bill. just by replacing the thermostat. So that's a great DIY thing. The thermostat wiring is a low voltage, so you're definitely not going to hurt yourself with it. So you can do that, or you can put in a smart thermostat like you see on the right here, the Nest. These are a little bit more involved to put in, not quite so simple as these Honeywells. I used to work as an auditor in Massachusetts, energy auditor, and geez, I put hundreds of these things in. They're pretty easy to install. So this is if you have a boiler or a furnace. If you have heat pumps, then you want to set it and forget it. You don't want to keep raising and lowering the temperature all the time. So this is just for boilers and thermostats. All right. One more thing that is great DIY project here. These are do-it-yourself air filters, air filtration systems. So the air filter systems, the ones that you buy in stores, can be $100, $200. It can be really expensive, and they don't really move that much air. Whereas something like this works really well. So I have to admit, I really put myself in the doghouse last year because I took the chimney down that went through the middle of our house. My house is from 1915, and this chimney's been here the whole time. I took it out. I thought I was great doing the DIY thing. I had a sledgehammer and took out the bricks, but it was the creosote. It wasn't the dust. It was the creosote. 100 years of that got all over everything, and I got in such huge trouble with my wife. My cats were running around like through the creosote. They jump on the furniture. There's black footprints everywhere. I was in so much trouble. So um, these Corsi Rosenthal boxes, you can make these air filters, this filtration system out of air filters for furnaces that Lowe's and or Home Depot, they have these. So basically you tape four of these together and then put a window box fan on top, and the air is blowing up. So it's basically the fan is pulling the air through these air filters, and it worked great. Also got me out of the doghouse. So there are YouTube videos how to make these. It's fairly low cost. $100. You may even have some of these things laying around. So great, great, very, very effective. For all the people out in the West with the wildfires and everything, these got really popular because, the air filters sold out in 2 minutes, but you can make your own here. All right, and then just want to kind of finish up with some things, a couple of things here. I love DIY. I love my DIY folks. I take my hat off to you. So many videos on YouTube that show you how to do so many things in your house yourself. There are some things though that I say maybe don't do DIY. Right. So this picture on the left, blowing insulation into your exterior walls. I don't know that you really want to do that. These guys are licensed and insured. They have a lot of experience. So first of all, you can't rent equipment typically that will do this. You can get a blower from a cellulose blower from like Lowe's or Home Depot and rent that, which you see the picture in the middle here. Um, but these are usually not strong enough to be able to actually dense pack insulation in the walls. You have to drill the holes through to blow the insulation in. It's easy to, hit electrical wires and things. So really, you want to let the pros do that. That's not really a DIY thing. Like I said, you can rent the equipment to blow in cellulose up in an attic, but before you do that, you have to go through and air seal everything first. And I mean, it's such a messy job. Again, uh, maybe don't do it yourself. If you have to, if you love to, then okay. But you go through Efficiency Maine. They have great rebates for insulation. Sometimes it would actually cost you less money to just hire somebody to do it because of the rebate than doing it yourself, in which case you get no rebate at all. And then the picture on the right here, spray foam. So this is commonly done in basements, the closed cell spray foam, where they're spraying two different chemicals that expand really quickly. And that also helps to kind of air seal as well. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 there. So there are kits that you can buy to DIY your own spray foam. But they're very expensive. These froth packs that you can get, Tiger Foam, things like that. Uh, you know, They're sold to be DIY kits, but I hesitate. If you go onto YouTube and you watch some videos on how to use these kits, the first thing they'll tell you is make sure that you have a fire extinguisher in case it catches on fire, right? You want to do that yourself? The thing can like catch itself on fire? No. Pay somebody to do that, somebody qualified who's got a lot of experience, use the efficiency main rebates, then it's much better that way. All right, and then here's my contact info in case anybody has any questions, want to reach me, then please feel free to reach out to me. Do we have
Oh,
questions?
thank you, Colin. You are such a wealth of information, and yeah, I think you really just laid that out so nicely. I am no homeowner, and yeah, I feel like I could do those things, so thank you so much. We do have a couple questions in the chat, and I want to start off with I think a question that was kind of burning in my mind too is as we air seal and really tighten up our homes as best we can, what are some of the steps we should take to ensure that we do have healthy indoor air quality?
Sure. So for most houses that were built more than 30 years ago, it is going to be really difficult for you to tighten the house up to that point that moisture and indoor air quality really becomes an issue, right? Where you've kind of made the house too tight. It's really hard to do that. Just with some caulking and everything. That's really more when contractors are blowing insulation in the wall, they're air sealing and insulating the attic. That's really tightening the building envelope. But then the contractors are using a blower door to measure the air leakage in the house, and they would be able to determine is it getting close to the point where okay, you need some mechanical ventilation. Uh, Another way to answer that, I mean, I definitely always recommend that you have exhaust fans in the bathroom. Not everybody does, but you want to make sure that you have fans that you're actually running to get that moisture out. I mean, when you take a shower, it's like a rainforest in your house, right? So you got to get that moisture out. And then also exhaust fans in the kitchen as well. Cooking really generates a lot of moisture. And a lot of people have the range hoods or the microwave vents that are just recirculating. Doesn't actually shoot it to the outside. So, I'm always looking at the sources of moisture when I do audits and making sure that you don't have too much moisture in the house. You gotta get that out of there.
That is super helpful. It's something I think we talk a lot about in sustainability world because we encourage people to take these steps to weatherize their home. But yeah, I never want to tell someone to go too far. But that's really helpful to know that most of us are probably in houses that are too old to really worry about that.
Yeah, that 1850s farmhouse, there's nothing they could do to make that house too tight, really. It's never gonna get there. It'll get better. Definitely get better.
Good to know. I think yeah, two more questions in the chat. The
Okay.
first being, could insulating indoor storm windows be a possible solution to air seal basement windows while preserving the light and or view and light from outside?
Yes. Yeah, you can do the interior window inserts in the basement, and that works as well. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And another question on the topic of basement insulation and moisture, are there any considerations for interior insulation below grade? Such as like would spray foam cause moisture issues below grade for historic brick or fieldstone foundation?
Right. So it depends. That's right. That's always the answer to everything in building sciences. It depends. If you have a rubble stone foundation, because it's so uneven surfaces, then really the only thing practical for most people to do is use closed cell spray foam and seal that up. So that's typically you have a contractor do that. If you got your fire extinguisher handy, you can do it yourself. But contractors usually do that. When you talk about things like brick walls, there's a lot of debate here. I like to err on the side of caution and not use spray foam. The issue is with brick, it's very porous material and moisture kind of moves through it pretty easily. And if the brick gets wet, which of course it will at some point, it has to be able to dry out or else it starts to deteriorate. And if you put spray foam over it, then you kind of limit its ability to be able to dry, at least on one side. So I like to err on the side of caution. Air seal with can foam, just any, places where there's air coming through. And then I like to use rock wool bats, which is a vapor open type of insulation. The moisture can still get through it, and it's not going to cause the brick to spall and disintegrate. So it depends on what type of material you're talking about. Another thing that I would want to add there, sometimes what I see is people come in and spray foam the walls in their rubble stone foundation of their 1850s farmhouse. But this is where building science is really important, because you think about it, that house has lasted this long because there's so much air leakage. And yes, that makes it uncomfortable, but they never had moisture issues in that basement. They never had radon problems in that house. And then all of a sudden we all mean well. We come along and we spray foam and we tighten it up, and suddenly you're creating a situation that that house was never designed for. So that's where we kind of use building science to think about, okay, what are the consequences of doing that? I mean, certainly lower bills, we want to be more comfortable and all that, but if there's dirt floor, you have to make sure you cover that with a vapor barrier, that it's effective. You probably want to run a dehumidifier to help to control the moisture. You want to use a radon monitor, like a continuous monitor, to be aware of the radon and indoor air quality issues in the basement. So I always like to say building science is kind of like the yellow flag, right? That says, hold on, before you do anything, just think about like the whole house as a system. Think about the consequences of what you might be doing here, where you're taking a house that was never designed to do that and then putting it in this kind of new situation. So I always say, it's not a red flag. You don't have to not do it. Just kind of, you really want to be thoughtful about it.
Thank you, thank you. Does anybody have any questions from the audience? If you raise your hand, I can allow you to talk.
Here, I'll stop sharing. Sorry.
Um, I have a question. And maybe this closes it out, but you mentioned a couple times finding things on YouTube. Do you have any favorite go-to people, or are most people just pretty good at explaining, and there's a lot of professionals on YouTube too, from what I've just Googled myself.
Right, right. Well, I mean, just like any corner of the internet, it's a mixed bag, right? Let's see. There are a couple of DIY channels that I subscribe to of people who do this for a living, contractors who love to put videos up. So there are a couple of those that I like to watch. Anything that you see that is done by a homeowner and they say, hey, I just did this project myself and it works great, take it with a huge grain of salt. You don't get to see what it looks like 6 months later or 1 year later, or what actually happened as a result of doing that. So when it's just the homeowners, be a little careful. But if it's a contractor that has an established business, then okay. And and
For
and
sure.
again, like think about the building science part of it a little bit and kind of slow down and think about it before you make any changes to the house.
I think that's gonna wrap us up. Colin, just gave us a ton of information. Maybe folks can pursue these projects at home. And yeah, a great webinar. Yeah, we're getting some comments. Everybody is really appreciative. I am glad we had you on today. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who attended.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Cool.
fun.
Bye, Colin.
All right, bye.